Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of That Early Childhood Nerd. I'm Heather Burnt-Santee, and for this episode, I've got Sam with me again.
Hello.
Hello, Sam. Sam Balch. Sorry, I should tell everyone who you really are in case
Should
they
know
aren't.
who I am at this point.
Well, that's what I think, but maybe this is someone's first episode,
And
so
welcome. We're glad you're here.
we'll ease them in. Sam's here, guys.
Okay.
So we are gonna actually dig into a quote from Lisa Murphy's brand new book
Woo!
in this episode. So the book is Lisa Murphy on Being Child-Centered. And this is the quote. Let's just jump in. We didn't even small talk or anything.
No, we don't need no small talk.
All right. Okay, so here's what I want us to talk about. Being child-centered is hard. Being play-based is hard. It requires endless amounts of understanding, empathy, observation, and a willingness to leave your own ego and issues at the door. The end.
And then we drop the mic and the podcast is over.
Shortest episode ever.
Everyone just ruminate on that. Get back to us in a few days. Let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah. So
we'll guide you through some discussions about it.
Yeah. So here's what I thought when I first read that. Because I have a very complicated relationship with the idea that teaching is the hardest profession in the world, or, teaching is the most, not to devalue, but
right.
A lot of times the people that I hear talking about how difficult it is to teach young children are talking about that because of the inconveniences of children's behaviors, or they don't have time to cut out all the little pieces they need for all their activities. And those kinds of things are why it's really harder. They're going home at night with things to color and cut out. And so it's cutting. So this was just a really interesting switch on that for me.
Yes.
Because I think in that case, they're making it harder than it needs to be.
Right. They're making it hard in a different way.
Yeah. So, but I think what Lisa's talking about is the more the mental effort and energy and the self-control and the self-awareness that you have to really be play-based and child-centered.
Mm-hmm. And I think for a lot of people that might be new to this term, play-based or playful learning, which is another term that I know Lisa really likes, is this. A lot of times you can come with this idea of that it's Lord of the Flies, and they just do whatever they want. Yeah. So yes and no. Yes, we want to, as Maria Montessori would say, we want to follow the child, as our homeboy Vygotsky would tell us about, children learn in this social context. We love those things.
Right.
As Dewey would say, we need to be looking for the child's interests as they construct meaning of the world around them. Mm-hmm. At the same time, as the adult, we have a big responsibility in that. It's child's, playful learning, play-based, doesn't mean the teacher's job isn't important or vital. It very, very much is. Right. And when Lisa talks about requiring these skills of observation and listening and empathy, you have to be on that all the time in order to realize what the children are thinking about, trying to learn about, working to make sense of. And that can be really kind of confusing, because it can, a lot of times what we're doing is we're turning this idea of who is the teacher and who is the learner on their head, right? Yeah. Because a lot of programs, I know my undergraduate experience was very much, you are the vessel of knowledge and you pour it into the child who is empty and
the oppressed.
Then they learn. Right. And
you are the pedagogy and you're pouring it into the oppressed.
You pour it in, and then that's how they learn, by you doing things. And instead we are saying, wait, stop. Let the children play, look for the themes that come up in their play, ask them questions about it, and find where that leads you. That's a lot trickier, because
it really is. And you can't just do a Pinterest search for that.
You
know what? The other thing that I think is more difficult about this is that it's not just looking for activities and putting them on a plan and then doing them and being happy with the children who participate and unhappy with the ones who resist. I think it requires a lot deeper knowledge on the adult's part.
Right. And I think,
and I'm not saying that I think you're stupid if you do an activity. just trying to sort of paint the two extremes that we're talking about.
You're doing what you know. You're doing what you were taught. And just be like, if you are a person that goes in every day with a set of activities planned, you probably still love those children to death and want to have a relationship with those children. If you're taking home shapes to cut out every day, and you're tired all the time and you're the kind of person that talks about how hard this job is, it's because you love it. Like, you love being around these people. I don't think a lot of people are like sitting there cutting out like fish shapes out of spite. Like, cutting out these damn fish because they sit on their couch watching Netflix. I don't, at least
to be honest, when I first started working with young children, and I had a group of 2-year-olds that I was working with, well, actually, when I first got promoted to lead teacher and I had my own class of 2-year-olds, I enjoyed taking things home to color, and that's why I did it. So I mean, but I also never like, I'm a martyr to this role I've taken on.
I do want to honor like the emotional connection a lot of times people have to these sorts of activities. Like, maybe we did them as children, or we've been doing them for 20 or 30 years. Yeah. And we like the joy that comes with them, or we like the memories that they bring back for us. Like, it's not a bad thing to want to have those experiences with children, or to have, or to, say like, I made hand turkeys every year. I'm making a hand turkey this year. I'm not a bad person for one.
It's probably not going to do a whole lot of damage if you do a handprint turkey.
Exactly. It's just recognizing, like, is that in the interest of the child?
Right. And is that the deepest experience that you could support for them?
Did that spring from the child's brain? Probably not.
Yeah.
Could have. I don't know. You could have a kid who's like really interested in hands and turkeys. And
you
should make this. Yeah. And this is a genius idea.
Yeah, so I'm doing the class that I'm taking right now, my last class. Hooray! Woo! I think I'm 3 weeks away from done. And I'll be done by the time this airs. But anyway, so everybody come to my party, my graduation party.
Your party, I want to come.
December 14th. Just come on over. Anyway, so this semester I'm doing it's like an action research class, and it's we have to pick an action research project and do it and write a paper, write a research paper about it. So I've been learning more and diving deeper into schema theory, schema play theory, I guess.
And there's a new book, I think, by either Deb Curtis and or Margie Carter and or Ann Pillow.
Oh, it's Deb Curtis and Nadia Habanetta, who were on the podcast a month or so ago to talk about the book. It was
some combination of the people who run in the same circles.
Yes, it's those Harvest Resources folks. Although I think they don't call themselves that anymore. They've changed again. Anyway, it's a good book, and it's figured heavily into this process. But one thing that's done is really helped me solidify ways that I talk about supporting children's interests and providing for what I see them exploring, rather than here's my idea for what they might do with this stuff if I put it out.
Yeah.
So I mean, I felt pretty confident in my ability before, but I do schema theory has really helped some of those behaviors and interests that we see in young children, has helped me see it more deeply.
And I think those behaviors and interests, so for people who might be listening and are like really unfamiliar with what the hell we're talking about, instead of thinking of September as when we learn about apples, because September is apples, that's the way it has been, right? So it is written. Right. Instead, if we see a child who keeps like jumping off of a surface and going down below, or keeps using a ball ramp, like, that's the interest we're trying to tap into here. Schema theory deals a little bit with that sort of thing. Again, listen to Heather's episode about it.
Dumping and filling, or transporting toys.
I once heard it's a focus on the verb and not the noun.
Yeah, that's a good way to talk about it.
That's been a helpful way for me to think about it.
Yeah, so and they do that kind of action in multiple different contexts. Yeah. So they're not just experimenting with dump trucks, although that may be a big piece of it. They're filling and dumping, or in multiple areas. So it could be sensory table. It could be in the art area,
Yeah.
just emptying the glue bottle could be a
Mhm.
dumping, part of that
Mhm. So
schema.
going back
Yeah.
to Lisa's quote,
Yes.
that, like, if we kind of take this lens of schema theory almost, that's really where this work gets hard,
Mm-hmm.
because it's no longer September apples. Let me do a quick search. What are some things we could do with apples? Oh, great. We're going to make apple stamps, and then we're going to do A is for apple. I'm going to read these 3 books. Instead, you've got more of this abstract idea of dumping and filling and dumping. And it's like, okay, so like a lot of times you might start with this sort of idea of, okay, I'm going to follow their interest. I'm going to look for the verb. The verb is dumping, filling, dumping. What the hell do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's not a checklist of activities you can do. And you're like, we have now learned everything we need to learn about dumping, and now you may proceed to kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more abstract. And in a lot of ways, it's a much more deeper interest than that.
Yeah.
Might not just be about the action. There might be something that's happening. There might be a memory that they're going through. Like, it takes a lot more observation. Like,
yeah, which sometimes our response is, when we see a child's sustained interest or repeated interest in something, sometimes our role is to just sit back and allow them to play it out, and not add anything to it, or not plan anything about it, or to try and understand it and try to help other people understand it,
right? And
or
that's
at least recognize it. And that's where, at the end of that quote that we started with, she mentions ego.
I was just going to say that.
And I think that's where that kind of fits, is we have to understand that sometimes to be child-centered means they don't need us.
Yeah, and that especially going back to the way you might have learned, or you might have been taught how to be a teacher, that can feel really uncomfortable. This idea of, what do you mean they don't need me? Like, no, I must give them all of my knowledge. They're gonna be okay if you don't run over to them and start talking about, oh, look at what's happening. If you put it up here, then the ball's gonna go faster down the ramp. Like, you can just sit there,
right,
and see what they do. And then if they come to you, you might make a suggestion, or maybe the next day as you're preparing the classroom, maybe you add, let's say you have a ramp, maybe you add something in the middle of the ramp, or maybe you put the ramp on a different surface. So you've changed it a little bit. You might have heard like provocation. Like, I would consider that sort of a provocation of learning as opposed to an activity. So you kind of put out an experience that they could have,
right,
and then just let them go.
Sure, which is that stage setting role of the teacher that Elizabeth Jones and Gretchen Reynolds talk about in the Plays the Thing, where you're just making sure that the things are available for them to continue what they've shown you they're interested in. The other thing that go ahead.
That is another reason why this work can be very, very hard, because you might have one week where everyone's really interested in ramps, and you're like, yes, now I've gathered all of these things for ramps. And then the next week, it might only be 2 of them that are still interested in ramps, and everyone else has moved on to jumping off of things. Yeah. And you're like, well, now what do you mean I have to change the materials in my room? Yeah. Whereas if you go by like a weekly, monthly curriculum, you're like, I have all of my apple things, and next I will have all of my fall leave things, and next I will have all of my fall clothes.
And I'll have so much time next September because I'll already have all this stuff.
Exactly. And it's like day to day, week to week, year to year. It's not going to be the same. You get a better feel for it. Like, even in the, admittedly very small amount of time that I have been, like, cosmically speaking, that I have been doing this sort of work, I feel more comfortable with it. I still have a long way to go before I know. And that's, I think, part of it. I was writing a 20-page paper that I definitely procrastinated on, but did submit on time.
Good.
And I was reading, something about postmodern perspectives in early childhood education.
Light reading.
Yeah, just light reading with Peter Moss, and a couple other people. And at one point they said in the book, completion is not part of the vocabulary.
Oh, that's interesting.
This idea that the journey of learning how to be an educator, how to facilitate learning, you're never going to feel fully comfortable in it. And nor should you. Right. Because that's what we're here to do. We're here to keep learning about it and keep learning with the children and keep figuring out the best ways to support the children in our care, which, is one of NACY's core considerations. What do we know about the children in our care right now? Yeah. They're going to be different than the children that were in our care a year ago, and probably different than the children that were in our care a month ago because children develop very rapidly.
Yeah.
Their lives change.
Yeah. I just, so the class that I'm teaching this semester, their final assignment is, which is a state mandated assignment. It's not one I made up, nor that I have any control over.
Bummer.
Well, I can have some, but anyway, the final product has to be a themed lesson plan for the period of a week, and they have to present it, to the class. So we were talking about it last week, and most of the people in my class have very limited or none experience
We got it.
with thinking about lesson planning or being responsible for planning for a group of children. And so I've told them, there's requirements, like they have to have different content areas represented.
Okay. Yep.
But I've told them that they can't have anything on the plan that isn't there because of something they know about development typically for that age, or because of something they know about the individual children they're planning for.
By the way, like we're at a poetry slam, like
so, and they're really struggling with it. I mean, they're trying, they're not arguing with me, but that's just such a foreign idea to them that we don't just do search for preschool activities and fill in the boxes. So I'm trying to help them see that this helps them make sure that it's really about the children that are with you and not about you as a teacher.
This just came to my mind again about this ego, and I'm so happy like we've included ego as part of this, because I don't think we talk about it enough as early childhood educators. This idea that children are citizens with rights, and be treated as such. We don't do things at them or to them. We do things with them. Many times we do things for them.
I was going to say, sometimes for them.
Like getting things down from high shelves.
Exactly. Not cutting out their shapes to go on the paper.
Like if you're like, I need that, then you're like, okay, I'll go get that for you. Like that, and that's not common in American society.
Right.
This idea that children don't have to just be bossed around, like they're not something you pick up by their neck and move them to another space.
Right.
That's kind of foreign for a lot of people, because that's not necessarily the dominant discourse in America or in American education.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you like sit there and think about the way like even like an elementary or middle or high school schedule works, like it's kind of like shuttling from place to place, much like an assembly line.
Yes, I was just gonna say.
Look up how the Industrial
Revolution
influenced classrooms. It's fascinating.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So this idea to break away from that, but especially to break away with that, from that with 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. That's not a common thing to do. So if you are wanting to do that, that is a very brave thing to want to do. That is a very admirable thing to want to do. Know that you are embarking on something hard, but also there are many, many people, whether they are teachers or professional researchers or whoever that support this practice. Around the globe. Like you're not alone.
And it's another element of what makes it more difficult to be child-centered and play-based, because you're going against the current a lot of times.
You very much are.
And you have so much unlearning. I know I had a lot of unlearning, and on several episodes with several co-hosts, I've talked about the idea that we even with the best of intentions and good training and solid philosophy, it's so easy to revert to our school memories and teach that way. And so it requires self-control and self-regulation, if we want to throw out a buzzword that we usually is targeted at children and target it back at ourselves this time, to shift in this way that we know children will thrive in.
Yeah. And that's so hard. And I think one of the other things that's hard about it is, in addition to everything Lisa says, this also requires, for me at least, and I know a lot, I'm sure you would agree at least somewhat, this requires this requires a delight. Like, you have to want to do this, and you have to want to be here with these children. You have to want to go through this sometimes, if not often, painful process of checking your ego and issues at the door and saying, that didn't work. Or saying, oh, I definitely just like went back to something that I was taught that I know is not suitable for this group of children, or any of the billions of other things you might do wrong in a day.
Right, exactly.
Or doing your best.
Because we want to do it this way and we believe it in this way, it might not feel like hard work. We might not realize all that we're putting into taking this approach. The self-reflection sometimes makes it difficult, and Emma Tempest and I just did an episode this afternoon where we talked about being kind to ourselves in moments like that.
Oh, that's good. I need that episode.
Yeah. So I think there's times when we may not feel like we're doing the hard work that Lisa's describing because of our passion.
Right.
But then there's other days like you're describing where we just are so hard on ourselves for each little thing or each misstep or any time you step sort of away from what you say you wanted to do.
And using those as learning moments for yourself and reminding yourself, I'm here to do this hard work because of, whatever other personal reasons you have. And because I love these children. I delight in these children and their experiences and their relationships and their interactions. And I want to be here as they go through their day and, whatever else it means for you, in addition to, making a tiny little paycheck.
Right.
That's another pod.
Aside from all the other glamorous aspects of our job.
The rich and famous lifestyle that you can
Oh my goodness. I lost my thought. You have something?
Okay.
You want to
talk? Do I have something?
Yeah. Does your house guest need to say anything?
Oh yes. By the way, listeners, I have a guest. Oh. Carrie, have you any thoughts?
Not at this moment.
She says not at this moment. But listeners, just so you all know, Carrie is a wonderful, fantastic teacher. I've been working with her for about 6 months now.
Yeah. We'll get her on mic eventually.
Yeah, on mic someday. And she's been so lovely. It's really great to, if you are not in a school that believes in this playful learning, child-centered, et cetera, so on and so forth vibe, know that I feel for you. Yeah. Know that if you have the opportunity to find that place, it's off the chain. It's so good. We were in my car discussing, or her car rather, on the way to my house, discussing things about child development and things about school, because that's what you get to do with people when you're with people who enjoy their job and delight in their work, and you delight in your work.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, you get to do these cool things. The other day, I was on the train with my boss, who took the train with me one day. I was like, "Hey, it's fun. I have a train."
Okay.
And we're chatting about this seminar I'd been to the past weekend and some things that were coming up. And as she gets off the train, the lady who's been sitting next to us says, "I just want you to know, the way you talk about children is so beautiful." And it made
wonderful.
Me so happy. And I started to cry.
Yeah. I was just going to say, did you cry? I would have cried.
I just really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We talked at the top of this episode about, in many ways, this is the hardest job in the world, and in many ways it's not, and we can argue about that all the time.
And for one, it's not a contest. I don't want anyone to get in the comments on this and be like, how dare you say I don't work hard? That's not what we're saying.
Just 7-minute sign up note, you work hard, signed Samantha. You do. Yes. I give you permission to say that you work hard.
And to know it's not that a contest.
When you speak about children in this way, on the train, on your commute home, and people hear it.
Yeah. That's advocacy.
That's really fucking good, man. Sorry, now you have to put the E on this episode unless you
I think Jeff just puts the E on every episode now. I think he got tired of picking and choosing.
Oh God, it's a Heather episode.
Yeah, and he just puts it on all of them. And
but it's just keep I guess my one piece of advice for someone that might be on this journey trying to figure out, okay, it's hard work. These things are happening. Maybe you're not at a center that's fully supportive, or your center's starting this journey to more of a playful learning perspective. What do you do? Keep talking about it, because that's going to challenge your own ideas and reinforce them. You're going to be able to talk more about what you believe and why you believe it. And those ideas are going to resonate with people, whether they're total strangers or they're your colleagues. These ideas will start to stick out.
Yeah. In the book, she outlines, I think there's 9 characteristics of being child-centered.
Oh, hell yeah.
And so there's like, I'll call that child-centered with a capital C. But I think, and it's, she's, of course she's brilliant. She's got it. She knows
True.
what this is.
Love you,
But I
Lisa.
think, yeah, if you are in a situation where you don't feel like you can be child-centered with a capital C and all of these things all the time, and you're forced to do these little activities, um, crafty kinds of things that don't work for every child. In that moment, you can choose, you can make decisions based on what's going on with the children during that activity and what they need from you and who's interested and who's not. And you can be child-centered in that little space of your day.
Right? You can.
Even if you don't feel like you can be capital C child-centered, if that makes sense.
Because it's all a journey. It's all a progression.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You have to do what you can with what you have. And now that you know better, you can do better.
You can do better.
Just know that you might not be able to do better 100% of the time right now, whatever your unique context is.
None of us do.
Because there's not like,
except Lisa.
Yeah, except Lisa. But like the child-centered police are not going to come after you for like, you're not doing it all the time. Like we're not going
to make you throw your badge on our desk.
Exactly. Like you're on this journey really, like as Lisa says, like you need to commit to doing this, and you need to commit to the knowledge that you're going to get more knowledge and you're going to get more practice. And that's also really hard for a lot of people. I know, like me, I'm like, no, I must be very good at this now, or else
all the time, right? Every decision must be perfect. No, I'm like that in like every element of my life except interacting with children.
There you go. That's healthy.
I know, right? Right. I mean, there's definitely times when I'm like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, but I'm getting really, really comfortable being gentle with myself in those situations and understanding my own humanity.
Exactly. I say this a lot, nobody teaches outside of themselves. Like you come from yourself and your own experiences, like you need to honor those things.
Yeah.
Work through those things.
Yeah. But you give me any other element of my life and I can tell you all the ways I screwed it up.
Did you remember your thought? Did you have it?
No, it's gone. I just have given up hope on that one. It'll hit me at like 3:00 tomorrow morning.
You just jot it down.
I'll jot it down.
Show notes.
Sure. Yeah, we'll put it in there somewhere. Okay. Any last thoughts, Sam, on this idea of being child-centered and play-based being really hard?
It is really hard, but it's really worth it.
It's worth it. Yeah.
And
I would add this. Of course, it's worth it for the children, and we're saying that we believe in it because we think it's what they need and deserve. But I think it's also a good space for adults to be in.
It is.
Yeah, as you've described.
It's worth it for yourself as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worth it for them. It's worth it for us. We could talk about how it's worth it to society, but like,
Sure. Nobody cares about society on a Wednesday night.
No, that's more of a Friday thing for me.
I don't know what that was supposed to mean. Except this is the 6th podcast I've recorded today, so I think I'm just out of ideas.
All right, perfect.
I'm out of original thinking. So thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Have a good time. Sam's going to Mexico to do some cool things that we'll have her on to talk about.
Oh, I would love that. I would love
episode.
to talk about the things. So then to tease the things I'm doing.
Yes, tease your thing.
To tease the thing I'm doing. I will be going down with Carrie, who is the guest at my house right now. And we will be serving at an early childhood space specifically for migrant children. So we'll be there for 5 days. I can give you more information about it when I'm back talking about it. It's a really, really gorgeous, important project that if I talk too much about, I'll probably cry.
Sure. So on that note, you come to terms with that. And then when you're back in the States, we'll record about it.
Let's do it.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you again. Bye.